You guys will remember that last week I told you guys that I had been informed that the upcoming Star Wars slate, which we knew the Star Wars slate was going to be 2022, 2024, and 2026. And I let you guys know that I had been informed by one of my sources that all three of those movies were Benioff and Weiss movies, not Rian Johnson movies. Now, then we discussed, does that mean the Rian Johnson films are canceled? Does that mean they're pushed to like 2028 or 2020, like 10 years from now? Doesn't mean that maybe Rian Johnson, instead of doing his own, is going to be working with Benioff and Weiss. Maybe he'll be direct. Who knows? But at any rate, Bob Iger yesterday, head of Disney, confirmed that yes, indeed, the Game of Thrones duo, the next three installments of the Star Wars franchise are indeed their films and not the Rian Johnson film. So now this confirms what we had been talking about, that it is indeed Benioff and Weiss's films are the new trilogy, not the Rian Johnson ones. But Rob, it still leaves a couple of questions hanging in the air. Okay, if the next films are all the Benioff and Weiss films, as Bob Iger is saying, what does that mean for Rian Johnson? Because they haven't said that he's done. They haven't announced he's gone. As a matter of fact, just like a month or so ago, they were talking about, Rian Johnson and Benioff and Weiss are collaborating together. So it seems to me, Rob, we've got a couple of options here. Option number one, the Rian Johnson trilogy is canceled. That after all the crap that he took from everybody, he doesn't want to have anything more to do with it. He's walked away from it, or vice versa, whatever. Option number two, they've just decided to delay his movies by 10 years. Okay, I've never heard of a 10-year delay being put onto a film, but that's possible. Maybe they just delayed his films by 10 years. A third option, like we mentioned, maybe he is indeed, those reports earlier were true, and he's now collaborating with Benioff and Weiss. That maybe instead of doing his own trilogy, they just decided to combine forces, and he's going to be working with Benioff and Weiss, maybe directing one or two of those films coming out. That's a possibility. Option number four, some other option that we're not even considering at this point. Rob, you heard this news about Bob Iger confirming this. Where do you think this leaves? Number one, what do you think about them doing these films? But number two, where do you think this leaves the Rian Johnson stuff right now? Still going as planned? Delayed? Is he gone? Is he working? Or something else? What do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, Bob Iger also teased a third Star Wars streaming series
yes, which we will get into in the movie news feed today, actually.
Well, I think, there's a lot of Star Trek. There's a lot of Star Wars happening. You've got The Mandalorian, you've got the Cassian Andor series, the Rogue One prequel series happening, and then whatever this third series is. So it's not like we're going to be without Star Wars.
We've also got like Clone Wars animated is coming back.
Right.
We've got that new show that's awful, the Resistance stuff. So they have a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff going on. Now, Weiss and Benioff aren't directors.
No.
So I could see something happening, whether they're collaborating, whether Rian Johnson's going to direct. I could see him being involved in some way, because despite what people's feelings are about The Last Jedi, it still made over $1 billion.
Yes.
It was not by any stretch of the imagination.
It was the number one film of the year that it came out. It was
number one film of the year. And people are like, well, what about Force Awakens? Force Awakens was anomalous in terms of its box office. We'll see with Episode 9. But Rian Johnson still knocked it out of the park with Last Jedi, as if you look at the money. So it wouldn't surprise me that he is even announced as the director of this film, and he's collaborating, because why wouldn't you want someone who's already written a Star Wars movie and directed a Star Wars movie to collaborate with Weiss and Benioff? I mean, I could see that thing happening. I mean, from Kathleen Kennedy's perspective, they had a great working relationship with Rian Johnson, and I could see bringing on Weiss and Benioff. Why not have somebody who's already been through this sort of the crucible of a Star Wars experience to help you and to work with you? I think it makes sense. It wouldn't surprise me if we do see them collaborating.
I will say that you ask about why not? Why not have Rian Johnson come in and do that? And look, I'm a Rian Johnson fan. I love Brick. I love Looper. I enjoyed The Last Jedi. But if we're going to ask the question, why not? Well, I mean, Bob Iger, who, by the way, Bob Iger loves The Last Jedi. He thinks that movie's great, but Bob Iger could very well sit back and go, why not? Well, there was a lot of backlash. Do we want to reinvite that backlash again? Like, understanding that if you announce Rian Johnson is directing another Star Wars film, you are going to have to do that, understanding that right off the bat, we're going to have an uphill battle, because we're going to have to deal with a deluge of the toxicity, the people whining about it and complaining about it and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff, you're going to have a big uphill fight to climb. And I'm thinking there's a possibility here, because you're absolutely right. The Last Jedi, for all everybody talks about, it was the #1 box office film of the year. Made over $1.3 billion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do have to keep in mind all the other kind of stuff around it. And I could see a scenario where a Bob Iger may. Now, Bob Iger could go, you know what, I'm Bob Iger and I love that movie. So yes, get Rian Johnson on that. Or he could go, look, from a practicality point of view, do we want to deal with this even before the movie comes out? And then the opposite side of that is, why would Rian Johnson want to come back at this point? When you look at all the crap he's taken, and we can have a debate about whether it's deserved or not, that's not the point right now. If you're Rian Johnson, do you want to come back right now? So I don't know. Let me ask you this, Rob. If I set an over-under at 35%, that Rian Johnson will be back, whether it's his own trilogy or going to be directing with Benioff and Weiss, and I set it at 35%, would you take the over on that, or would you say it's under that?
I think I'm going to take over, because I'll point something else out. So Weiss and Benioff have been showrunners on Game of Thrones. They created the series. They've worked on it despite what's the vitriol that's on the internet now. For 8 years, they've had since 2011, they've had a great run on the show. Rian Johnson directed episodes of Breaking Bad, where he was working for other showrunners, Vince Gilligan. So he is not a stranger to working for showrunners, and he directed some of the best and most innovative episodes of that show, including the episode "The Fly."
That's my all-time favorite episode of Breaking Bad. I love that.
Yeah, and he directed that. So while people might complain, I mean, look, George Lucas directed all 3 prequel movies, and there was a lot of fan backlash for the prequels. But I could see if you had, I think Weiss and Benioff and Rian Johnson are going to catch a lot of hell right now. But if they were teaming up as a team, and knowing that Rian Johnson has worked with showrunners before, and essentially Weiss and Benioff are going to be the showrunners for these new 3 Star Wars movies, I would imagine, it could be a great team up. It could be something, we might get something really great out of it. And I think it could be really exciting. But then again, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right, guys, the important thing here is, what do you make of all this? What do you think about the fact that the next trilogy is not going to be Rian Johnson's? It's going to be the Benioff and Weiss ones. And really, what do you think is going to happen with the Rian Johnson situation here? I don't care what you want to have happen. I'm interested in what do you think will. I don't care if you're pro or anti Rian Johnson. Do you think he is still going to get his films done like 10 years later? Do you think he's going to work with Benioff and Weiss instead? Or do you think he's gone altogether and they're just not talking about it right now? I want to know your opinions. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts.